When and how did you discover this inner wolfness?
Probably around age 10 or 11. I was watching...
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Hello, and welcome to The Ragening. Yay!
Woo!
We are bringing you another delightful item. This is Daily Wire's What is a Woman? By Matt Walsh. It's a documentary on how people define what a woman is. It sounds delightful, doesn't it?
Yes. One quick preamble before we get into the trailer.
The modern American LGBT person, if he conforms ideologically to the left-wing doctrines of the day, which is always the qualifier here, but if he does, then he will be by far and away the most privileged sort of American to ever exist.
Gonna have to correct you there, Matt. Even within the subset of people who conform ideologically to the left-wing doctrines of the day, there is a more privileged demographic out there. Hint, it's in the title of your film.
You know, I don't know what a woman is. I'm not a biologist. But let's find out.
What is a woman? Can you tell me that? Well, you're at the Women's March. You must have some idea.
Okay. I find this really hilarious that these women cannot define what a woman is. Presumably that they are women. I don't want to misgender them. Especially since one of them has a sign that says, if men could get pregnant, then well, we wouldn't be having this discussion on abortion. So she doesn't know what a woman is, but she knows that a man has more rights than whatever a woman is.
A woman, you see, is whatever we say it is. That's where these folks are at now. Truth and reality, these things are whatever we say they are. They're so entrenched in this bubble that they've lost the ability to even reference the measurable characteristics of biology or physical law or anything. It's just, because I say so, end of story. They talk as though they are everybody's parents, but they sound like everybody's children. That's going to become more apparent as we proceed.
You're right. The sign is actually right. There would be no argument about abortion if men got pregnant, because men would be expected to stand up to the responsibilities of their choices. Full stop. That's why feminists never use actually taking men's right to separate consent from parenthood to consent from sex. They never use any kind of analogy that does that, because men don't have that right. And incidentally, neither do trans women who are having sex with their uterus having girlfriends. You know, a trans woman, a pre-op trans woman who has sex with her uterus having girlfriend, and that uterus having girlfriend gets pregnant, that trans woman's a mother, regardless. She has to deal with whatever consequence her cis girlfriend lays on her. Cis girlfriend can have a morning after pill. She can abort. She can take the child to a safe haven abandonment drop-off, or she can adopt. But the trans woman, she's beholden to whatever her cis girlfriend decides. Is that fair? Is that fair? Is that trans misogyny? Is what we're calling misandry these days?
Yes. If you hate being in the same space as men, that's transphobia. It needs to have a name, and it can't be misandry, because there's no such thing as misandry. Loo.
All right, moving on.
Please, if one person could tell me what a woman is.
You are not here for women. We ask you to leave.
What is that?
Controversial mind of Matt Walsh, but unfortunately what I have noticed so far, maybe there will be some, huge 180, is that the focus is on women as victims, which is so counterproductive in all of this. So counterproductive.
At times, it seems too absurd to be productive, but you might say highlighting the absurdity is the product. Observe.
Male gametes. That's what makes me male.
No, your sperm don't make you male.
Then what does?
It's a constellation.
Gemini. Perhaps. Or Cancer. But yeah, so it's a constellation of things, right? So that means you can't be male just by identifying as male. Because that's one thing, not a constellation. You need other things, like chromosomes or sperm.
In reality, in truth, okay?
Whose truth are we talking about?
The same truth that says we're sitting in this room right now, you and I.
No, you're not listening.
See what I mean? There is no truth. You just have to listen to me and believe me.
If I see a chicken laying eggs and I say that's a female chicken laying eggs, did I assign female, or am I just observing a physical reality that's happening in the world?
Does a chicken have gender identity? Does a chicken cry?
Well,
Does a chicken commit suicide?
What?
Let's frame it, because you're trying
to... Chicken has sex like any biological organism.
Chicken has an assigned gender, but a chicken doesn't have a gender identity.
So we assign female to chickens when they lay eggs?
We assume they're female if they lay eggs.
For anyone who was going ahead and assuming that I'm a human being, I'm not. I'm a chicken. And I can assure you that we as chickens do indeed cry, and we do indeed commit suicide. I'm on the verge of both at the moment.
I define a woman as any human being who wants to have rights. Okay? I define a woman as any human being who wants to be able to separate consent to parenthood to consent to sex. Or, hell, not even consent to sex, because men, if they get raped, they're still expected to take on the responsibilities of parenthood. Okay? I define a woman as anyone who wants the full spectrum of bodily autonomy, including being able to separate consent to parenthood to consent to sex, being able to be recognized that when you are hit by your partner, whether or not your partner has a penis or a vagina, it is domestic violence. When you are raped by your partner or any individual, whether or not they have a penis or a vagina, it's still rape. You know, these are the things. Women are anyone who wants full human rights. I guess I'm a women's rights activist now. Are you accept that definition?
I like scented candles, and I've watched Sex and the City.
Yeah.
How do I know if I'm a woman?
That's a great question.
If I join the army, does that make me a man? Because funnily enough, it apparently does work the other way around.
Society will never give up the ability to sacrifice one sex's bodily autonomy in whatever circumstance it feels appropriate. I'll put it that way. Society will not give up the right to take men out of their lives and force a weapon in their hands and force them into a situation where they have to kill or be killed in order to resolve its problems, in order to make sure that it continues into the next generation. Society will never give that up. So men will never really be recognized as women.
You're not a scientist. You're not a gender studies major.
No.
How do you know that you're a man?
I guess because I got a dick.
Can a man become a woman?
Well, that is actually very cleverly showing that this is all just a decadent empire's navel gazing. Because other cultures, they can't afford this nonsense. They need to be able to get men and women working together as men and women to survive. And we can't afford this nonsense. That's why we're constantly importing people from cultures that still don't do this, because this is total dysfunction. But it's not like the problem that I have, and it's going to get more apparent as we go in because I have watched this before. The problem that I have is that Matt Walsh does not identify this dysfunction. He likely thinks the source of the dysfunction is extreme radical trans activists. That isn't it. They are a symptom.
Yes, let's take a slightly deeper dive into this interview as well.
What about a transgender?
Okay.
Transgender?
No.
No?
It look like if you want to become a lady but you're a man, you have something wrong in your mind. Something wrong in your family, something wrong in you.
Disavow, YouTube is asshole. Hard to disavow. But you're entitled to your beliefs, sir. You're entitled not to be arrested for your beliefs. And for that, I envy you.
What about if someone was non-binary?
Come again?
Non-binary?
Uh-huh.
Do you know, like non...
We have never seen things like those. For a man, he has a penis. For a woman, he has a vagina.
Oh, the poor uneducated wretch. He's not taking chromosomes into account, and we're not supposed to either.
A woman has its own duty, and a man has its own duty, and a lady cannot do the duty of a man, and a man cannot do a duty of a woman.
You hear that? The duty of a woman. That's the most misogynistic thing he's said so far, isn't it? Hey? A great irony here is the way people answer the question, what is a man? Where man is a gender term, is often not met with the answer, a man is an adult male human. Even traditionalists, indeed, especially traditionalists, will define a man in terms of some kind of duty, some set of behaviours pertaining to that duty. But in the same breath, they will go ahead and define a woman as just an adult female human. End of story. Apparently, males don't count as adults unless they are doing something, whereas females count as adults just by being. So is it any wonder that people get into their heads that they can be a woman just by saying so? It is this very disparity that got us here. If we don't hold women to any standards of duty or behaviour, then a woman might as well be whatever we say it is. So, here's an answer. A woman is a female human who acts like an adult. By that I mean, takes care of themselves, takes responsibility for their own agency, recognizes the humanity and vulnerability of other kinds of people, namely men, and doesn't speak in that interminable high-pitched uptalk like a fucking child. If you meet none of these criteria, then you're not a woman. You're just the mind of a child developmentally arrested in the body of a post-pubescent human. How about that? Yeah. If you're not up for that, if you'd rather just define a woman as any post-pubescent female human, then you also have to define a man as any post-pubescent male human. You can't have this be a real man rhetoric without the accompanying be a real woman rhetoric. I mean, you can, You absolutely can, but you will end up in precisely the situation in which we have found ourselves as a fucking species. Men and women are not equal. But adults and children are not equal. So don't treat female adults like they are female children. They are not. Anyway, let's crack on with the trailer.
I'm not a woman, so I can't really answer that.
Women only know what women are.
Are you a cat?
No.
Can you tell me what a cat is?
Not a dog.
I'm a biological woman that medically transitioned to appear like a male. I will never be a man.
This is what I found really interesting. Okay, so the focus is now on trans men. So women who transitioned into being men. And there is a large amount of them who regret it. And I find that really fascinating. Don't see as much with trans women, but a lot of trans men who regret transitioning into being a man. I wonder if that says something.
And so they go on the internet and they're told that all of their problems will be solved if they become a man.
So you worry that there could be a sort of social contagion element of this?
A teeny tiny bit, maybe.
It got me at 42. Your child doesn't have a chance.
And now you are reaping the whirlwind. And what is the whirlwind? The fact that boys don't want to be boys. If they're expected to take responsibility for all the harms that have befall girls. And girls don't want to be girls when they're told that being a girl is being a victim. Where do you think all this is coming from? Do you think the trans activists just sprang from Zeus's head, fully formed? No, they are a downstream symptom of this. You are not teaching boys and girls to be proud of being boys and girls anymore. You are teaching them to hate those parts of themselves with this narrative, with this way of describing boys and girls, men and women, men as oppressors, women as oppressed, men as constructing a society for their own benefit at the expense of women, which is putting men's identity in opposition with their instincts, because men's instincts are to protect and provide for women. So you are saying to boys, and they're going to grow up, go through puberty, start developing those instincts to protect and provide for women. And what are you telling them? What are you shoving into them? The idea that they will be harmful to women because they're boys. So you're setting their instincts against their identity. And you wonder why. Downstream of this poison, we have the radical trans activist community. You deserve it, to be honest. Everybody who embraces female victimhood, this asymmetrical focus on female victimhood, you deserve this. And guess what? You will never fix it.
And you're affirming it with hormones that have never been used in this way.
Puberty blockers, which are completely reversible.
Completely reversible.
I have a doubt.
One of the drugs used is Lupron, right? Which has actually been used to chemically castrate sex offenders.
You know what? I'm not sure that we should continue with this interview.
Do you think Mr. Walsh is talking to you in bad faith? Because that sounds suspiciously like an assumption.
So you don't want to talk about the drugs that you give to kids, or?
How can they be removing the healthy breasts of 15-year-old girls?
What's next? Mutilating the healthy genitals of 8-day-old babies? Oh wait, no, that came first. Seems pretty bass-ackwards to me, but that's somehow the way it is. And the way it will remain. If you keep giving them the inch, they will keep taking the pound of flesh. Yeah? This train needs to be stopped. Not just rolled back a couple of stops and set on its way again, but rolled all the way back to the first terminus to be derailed, decommissioned, and dismantled. Capiche?
How can this whole thing be happening, Matt?
I don't know. Let's have another deep dive, shall we?
I'm just trying to start by getting to the truth, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really uncomfortable with that language of, like, getting to the truth.
Tell me you're a pathological liar without telling me you're a pathological liar. Which pathological liars generally don't, but you're by far the closest anyone's got.
Again, in social life...
Why is that uncomfortable?
Because it sounds actually deeply transphobic to me. And if you keep probing, we're going to stop the interview.
It's not even my truth versus your truth anymore. There is only my demands and your obedience.
If I probe about what the truth is?
You keep invoking the word truth, which is condescending and rude. I'm saying to you...
How is the word truth condescending and rude?
There is no how anymore. There is no why anymore. We do not establish, we do not determine. We just click our fingers and instantaneously create an unquestionable reality to replace whatever has been established or determined. This is not just a superiority complex based on secular reasoning. This is the divinely revealed wisdom of a God complex.
Why don't you tell me what your truth is, and you're walking on 30 seconds more of thin ice before I get up.
We don't all live in a post-truth world. But this man, beyond any reasonable doubt, has admitted that he does. And he's never coming back to a world where his accountability is ever at risk of existing. Run, Matt. Run like the fucking clappers. And don't look back at the explosion.
Part of me wants to ask why you care so much.
I care about the truth. I care about children. I care about the women who are having their opportunities stolen from them.
And yeah, sure, keep your eyes on the prize, why not? Think of women as the victims. This has to be how we solve this.
But yet we could just go back and say, you know, this idea that man constructs society for the benefit of women, or the benefit of men at the expense of women, very toxic. Maybe we should actually deal with the existential crisis that underlies it. And you know what that is? We don't know who we are anymore. God's dead. Who are we? Right? But we can't deal with that. So we invent some new moral axis to live out. And it doesn't work. It just destroys our relationships to each other. And most importantly, it destroys men and women's relationships to each other and to themselves. What do you think this is? The divorce courts, DV, what's happening with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, that's the destruction of men's, Me Too, believe all women, that's the destruction of men and women's relationship to each other. The trans radical activists are a reflection of their destruction, the destruction of their relationships to themselves. And there's only one idea to blame. One thing that's being promoted. And that is how we see the relationship between men and women. And the defining feature, their defining feature. And right now our society has embraced oppression as the defining feature between men and women.
There's a fairly obvious joke that some people have reached on this subject. If you can become a woman just by saying so, then how about everyone just claims they're a woman? Then we can all be women, and then we can all be truly equal. And this is one of those jokes that inadvertently becomes not a joke. recently called the Babylon Bee prophecy, previously called the Onion Conundrum, and forgotten as the thing I've been doing since long before any of these Johnny-come-latelys can recall. It gives you a glimpse into the harrowing reality of the situation, the ultimate trajectory of this ideology. Let's just do away with calling anyone men. That is precisely what they want. Nothing short of the total destruction of masculine identity. And they've already pushed us halfway there, long since. Masculine identity is conditional. Not even on biology, but on labour, by physical and psychological bondage. It's not even Arbeitsmacht-frei, it's Arbeitsschaft-Identität. Probably translated that poorly, but you get the idea. Work brings identity. It applies to men, but not to women. It's been that way, not for 10 years, not for 100 years, but for thousands of years. Since the fall of the Roman Empire, at the very least. And this is the end game, wherein the amount of work required to be called masculine exceeds the amount of work any mortal human can achieve. And this goes on until we have excised masculinity completely from our language and from our civilization. And don't go thinking it ends there. That's not even the final solution. After that, we'll still be left with a binary where everyone is either woman or trans woman. And guess who's next for the chopping block? And by that point, I mean the literal chopping block. And it won't even stop there. It won't stop until everyone is dead. And it'll only stop there because it has to. Because everyone's dead. That's what happens when you have no exit plan. When you have no way of conceptualizing when you've gone too far. You will inexorably go too far. And then you'll keep going. It's very possible that we're already beyond the point of no return. If you want to save humanity, then save masculine identity. Because that is what is in jeopardy, principally. But you don't have to save humanity. It's not your responsibility to save all of humanity. Just save yourselves. And hope you can find other people who are still capable of saving themselves. I may not get there with you, but I've been to the mountaintop and I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Good luck, everyone.
Honey badger, lips the face of the puppet master. Chews it up like a honey master. Spit it out into your copy pasta. The honey badger.